Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds for Plymouth County. And this show is about Plymouth County real estate. We're going to be reporting on the numbers for July. This is an August show, but we'll be reporting on the recordings at the Registry of Deeds for July, which will tell you a little bit about some of the trends in the real estate market from actual numbers. First, you're going to see an image for deeds. Deeds are basically sales of property. There were 1,130 deeds recorded in July, less than the 1,295 recorded in June, up 12% from the 1,013 deeds last July, and for 7 months they've been pretty stable. Mortgages are a little different story, although those still come in at a good clip. Mortgages have been somewhat affected by the rise in interest rates and the fact that people, for the most part, are no longer refinancing mortgages. However, there were 1,798 mortgages recorded in July, less than the 1,923 recorded in June, up 3% over last July, however, down 8% from last year at this time, again, based upon some bumps in the interest rate. We continue to track foreclosure issues very closely. From the meltdown in 2008, going forward, things have certainly gotten better. There were 37 foreclosure deeds in July, less than the 67 in June, 21% less than last July, and 12% lower for this time of year overall. There's also a document called a foreclosure notice, order of notice, and that is someone who is just beginning to get in the foreclosure crisis, foreclosure problem. Someone that hasn't been able to pay their mortgage for a while, and they start the foreclosure process. There were 56 of those recorded in July, down from the 65 in June, 14% than last July, 2% year-to-date over last year. Generally, over the last number of years, they've continued to drop. However, lenders are getting caught up because of that shortfall, and I would advise anyone that is facing difficulty to please contact a federal housing counselor as soon as you can. There's also a listing here of foreclosures in orders of notice by communities. Brockton, Plymouth, and Wareham are the ones most difficult. I'll highlight again, we have a free training program every month, the first Thursday of the month. The next one will be held Thursday, September 6th at 9 o'clock. We have 8 computers that you get a hands-on training on how best to navigate our website. You'll hear in the second segment some of the things we're adding to our website, and we advise anyone historically interested or involved in the real estate market to take advantage of that program. I have a great guest in the next segment of the show, Tim White, the Assistant Register at the Registry of Deeds in Plymouth, who will be discussing some of our new modernization efforts at the registry, which I know you'll find interesting. So we'll see you next segment.
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit, and now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking, now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. And this section of the show is educational in nature. We've had commercial real estate brokers, appraisers, assessors, many realtors. In this show, we're going to talk about some modernization efforts at the Registry of Deeds, as we have before. And I have a great repeat guest, Tim White, thanks, Tim.
John, happy to be here.
Tim is the Assistant Register of Deeds for Plymouth County. And I know you've been on before, but just give our viewers just a quick refreshment of your role at the registry and what you did prior to coming to join us at the registry.
Sure. Well, we'll start with I'm a lawyer, licensed in Massachusetts now for I don't know, almost 40 years, more than that. For most of my career, I was in private practice, did a variety of things. Started out as a criminal defense attorney and then sort of moved into the civil side of the law and a little bit of real estate here and there, but primarily civil trial work for the time. I was in practice with my brother Greg, who does a fair amount of real estate and estate practice. Joined the registry a few years back, and as the assistant registrar, basically have responsibility for making sure that our recorders have questions often that come up at the recording desk as to whether something is recordable or something needs to be changed or amended. And we're the same with the land court, and so we field those kinds of questions, and we deal with a significant number of staff issues, and perhaps the best part of the job is getting to work with the Plymouth Colony records. Sure. And the history and all that kind of good stuff. So.
And clearly you've played a major role in our modernization efforts.
Yes.
And that's kind of what we're going to be talking a little bit about today.
Yep.
So there are 5 or 6 items that I think it'd be nice to share with the public as to our progress, because I know that our goal has been from many years ago to get 400 years of land records available over the internet, and we're getting closer and closer to that accomplishment.
That we are.
However, there's a major project that we've been working on for a number of months, and that is the ability to do e-recording, which we already do on the recorded land side over the internet for land court. And we're getting very close on that.
We are. And like you said, on the recorded side, you've been electronically recording documents now for 7 or 8 years anyways.
Right.
And it's been a great resource for the public, where you can, instead of traveling down to Plymouth, if you're up in Hingham or Hull, that you can actually go to your lawyer's office and do a closing there and have the records recorded simultaneously. We have, up until this point, only done the recorded land side, and last year we sat down and talked and said that we ought to look at the land court side. Land court side is typically a little more complicated or complex or specialized, maybe is the best way to put it, and it required us going back to our provider, the software provider, to see whether or not they could make changes to the system to allow us to do the land court e-recording. And it's taken a little bit longer than we were hoping to, but we do seem to have the end in sight. As we are sitting today, we can record, e-record non-time sensitive documents in land court. Things like assignments or homesteads or discharges of mortgage, things that don't have any absolute time that they need to be recorded on. Doing the whole panoply of records that need to be recorded, documents to be recorded, has required additional work by our software provider. And they're getting close, and the most recent update we received is that we're hoping to have everything up and running by the end of September.
Right.
So we're getting close.
And just for the public, there are 2 sides of the registry. There's recorded land and there's land court. Land court, which is only about 10% of our documents, right, basically came out of an Australian Torrens system, which is absolute title. All the encumbrances go on a certificate of title. So if you're out there watching and you're a little confused about what we're talking about, if you go to your tax bill and it says book and page on that tax bill, that means your property is in recorded land. If it has a certificate number, that means that for some reason over the years, there's been a boundary dispute, an ownership dispute that had to go before a land court judge and be issued as a judgment and then added in as a certificate. That is the part that we're trying to get also live recordings to work for us. Because although we do have 3 offices, Plymouth, a Brockton satellite, and a Rockland satellite, all land court recordings have to be done in Plymouth. So all throughout the county, they would have to travel down to Plymouth to record a land court. Whereas when this comes along, for live document sales of property, it'll be a matter of great public convenience.
And that's exactly what we're looking to do. We're trying to make it easier, folks, to get their documents on record.
So another matter that I know you've been working on is another matter of public convenience, and we've kind of been hesitant over the years to do it because with credit cards, there normally is a fee attached to it, and we have to be absolutely sure that we charge what is in the statute for a copy of a deed or recording of a mortgage or a deed. And we did work that out with our intermediary bank, Rockland Trust, and one of their vendors. And we now offer credit cards at the counters. You want to talk about that?
Sure. A couple other registries have started the credit cards,
Right.
and we belong to a Register of Deeds association, and the different registers will talk about the things that they have done to try and improve service for their customers. And so we weren't exactly reinventing the wheel, but we heard that it was a service that the public appreciated. So we looked into it, and sure enough, our bank told us that they could facilitate credit card payments, and we have now got credit card machines at Plymouth, in Rockland, in Brockton, and they have been warmly received by the public. We have posted at each of the locations where we have the credit cards a notification to the customer that there is a 3% charge if you want to pay by credit card. You can pay by check, you can pay by cash, and pay just what the statute requires as the payment for the recording of a particular document. But if you do want to use a credit card, that option is available, and it's an option that the public is taking advantage of. So it seems to, we've got a pretty smooth start. We had one little bit of a bump in the road, as you often do when you start a new program. We had to get our security protections down, the Fox walls, whatever they are, the firewalls. We had to get those adjusted to allow the credit card program to be implemented. But everything's running smoothly, and it seems to be another modernization that we have implemented that the public is appreciative of.
So I was in Brockton the other day, and an attorney had come down from far away, and he had forgotten his checkbook. And when he saw the sign on the desk that said, "We now accept credit cards," he was so excited. And that's just
That's a perfect example. It is.
Of how you can help people out.
Yeah. And sometimes they come down with checks that are in the wrong amount.
Right.
And it's a nice option to have available.
Right. So we've been working for quite some time, a number of people at the registry and an outsourced company, to load up a linked index to all our documents so that if you enter the name of the grantor or grantee, it would bring up not only the index information, but the document connected with it. And that now goes back to 1764. We got about 50,000 recorded land books, and we have 50 to go, which would cover almost that 100 years, and that's a work in progress. But you actually, particularly for the historians and the genealogists out there, you now can go online and search back to 1764 over the internet without having to come in the registry.
And that's great. If you think about it, just a year ago, you could only go back to about 1950.
Yeah.
As far as being linked back,
Right.
and then after that, there was no linkage. And the linkage aspect of it is important, I think, to understand that it allows that the ability to not just see what the book and page is and then go find the book. It brings that book right up for you, that page right for you, that document right for you, and it links them together, and it makes, whether it's a title examination easier, or whether you're researching your genealogy, you're researching something for history.
So a couple of new things to us. One is we are in a contract for a transcription project starting in 1685, Book 1, Page 1 of the county records, to do a transcription of some very detailed handwriting that goes back almost 400 years.
Yeah.
And the writing and some of the wording, pretty difficult to read if you're not used to reading that script. Never mind, we're bringing about a whole generation of people that won't even know what handwriting
What cursive is.
looks
Yeah,
like.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is something that is in progress.
Yeah, that's a new project,
Right.
and that's going to take, I mean, for us to do all the way back to 1685, it's going to take a long time to
Right.
get that done. But
Right.
we're very excited about actually getting it started and
Right.
seeing the first few years, the first few books.
Right.
Once we get it, up on our online, accessible from the website, it'll be fun to see the handwritten document and then the transcription very easily to right next to each other and be able to compare and contrast.
So I do think that, again, for genealogists and people searching historical events and historical people and places, it's a lot easier to read when they're transcribed. Because, believe it or not, our Plymouth colony records, which are the original documents in the 1600s, in the handwriting of the colonists, the pilgrims, and such, are transcribed
For the most part.
for the most part.
Yeah, yeah, and that's another potential project down the road.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Well, you're right. I mean, I think that to keep them, reinforce the benefit of this is, if you don't have the transcription next to the handwriting and you're trying to read that handwriting, you're going to take considerably longer at the task you're working at than if you have the transcription available.
So that's something for people to watch.
Yep.
Watch our website. It'll be listed under resources, and I'm sure we'll do a blog about it as those things become available. And another new project is our Brockton satellite, which has been around in different locations since the mid-'80s, which is another customer convenience opportunity for people to go in and get copies of their deeds, to go in and check whether you have a homestead recorded, to go in and check whether your discharge has been recorded. Those opportunities is moving to a new location. It'll be cleaner, upgraded, more technology-oriented space. The contract's just about to begin. It's going to be located in the former district attorney's office, which is a county building, next to Superior Court on Belmont Street in Brockton, Route 123, 32 Belmont Street. And that is, the contract has been awarded and should be getting started. I know there's a first contractor meeting next week so when you drive by there, you'll notice that starting to happen. And we will be moving out of 155 West Elm Street, the former district court, over there. And that's an exciting project because it not only is for customer service, it's also a disaster recovery site, or will be a disaster recovery site. If there's a problem in Plymouth to operate, you need a place to go and operate that's connected with all your information.
Yeah, I mean, and you touched on it earlier, from the customer service aspect. Plymouth County is a very large county. That's a lot of land. And to be able to have your primary office down here in Plymouth, but the one city in the whole county is Brockton, and to have an office right down in Brockton where we have our computers there, where you can research your titles there, where you can do a closing there. You can do it, basically everything except land court that you can do down here in Plymouth in both Brockton and Rockland is a great advantage. And the West Elm building has served the Commonwealth for many, many years, but it's had its day. And it's great that we're going to be able to move into what will be new space, upgraded space, and space that will not only serve as the satellite, but as our disaster recovery center.
Yeah, and Plymouth County is just so large,
Yeah.
land area. Many counties, when they were founded, their county seat was smack in the middle of the county, like Dedham in Norfolk County as an example.
Right.
And I was down in Wareham the other day, and I had to make a stop in Rochester. And when you drive from Wareham up through parts of Rochester, with all the cornfields, you feel as if you're in Kansas. It's so diverse
Yeah.
from being up in Hingham and Howell and Brockton.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, Plymouth County is a large, large county. Absolutely.
And last but not least, I do want to highlight, again, we do talk about it in another segment of the show, that the first Thursday of every month, we run a free training session on how to navigate the Registry of Deeds website. And it's a great 2-hour opportunity for free if you're interested in history, your family history, or your community's history, if you have any involvement whatsoever in the real estate market, to be able to navigate those records, particularly with all we're putting up on the internet. We strongly encourage you to participate in one of those. Again, the first Thursday of every month. The next one is the first Thursday in September.
Yeah, it's great to get those search tips when, again, you're working on a task and you want to make sure you can get it done as efficiently as possible. Taking this course gives you tips on how to search your real estate, how to find things and
Right.
identify things.
Well,
So.
we're all done. Thanks again.
Great. Okay.
Covered a lot of ground.
Good.
So thanks again to Tim White for the great job he did in giving an overview of some of our soon-to-come modernization efforts, some of which are in progress, some of which are just starting, but will clearly be beneficial to the public, because the more you know about what's going on with your real estate in the real estate community generally, you can make informed decisions. In this segment of the show, we do something a little lighter in nature. The holidays for the month of August, National Chocolate Chip Day, which we'll come back to in one of our notable land records. The 19th is World Humanitarian Day. The 26th, National Dog Days. No relation to the dog days of August, but we're going to get right into our notable land records. And speaking of chocolate chips, we have a great little story in our land records about the development of the chocolate chip cookie. Ruth Graves Wakefield was the inventor of the Toll House cookie when she was an owner of the Toll House in Whitman. So the Toll House was built way back in 1709 and was a haven for road-weary travelers. They stayed overnight, had home-cooked meals, and made their travels much nicer. Ken and Ruth Wakefield purchased the Toll House in 1930. In 1933, this is how far back the cookie goes, Ruth ran out of her regular chocolate, baker's chocolate, while making butter drop-dew cookies, and she chopped up some Nestle's chocolate bars into tiny bits and added them to the cookie. And that turned out to be a great thing that people really liked, so she continued to make them. At some point along the way, Nestle bought the recipe from Mrs. Wakefield, and to this day, you'll find it on the back of Nestle semi-sweet chocolate morsels. Over the years, people have continued to follow that story, even after the Toll House burned down. And in 1997, the chocolate chip cookie was designated as the official cookie of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And also something that always we think about in the summer is the old Nantasket Beach, Paragon Park, the roller coaster, many of the great rides, the Wild Mouse and other things like that. Unfortunately, Paragon Park was torn down years ago. The great and tallest roller coaster in the world still exists in a park to the south of us. The remaining entity, the Paragon Carousel, is still there, and it's located on the National Register of Historic Places. And Hull is a great place to go out to Nantasket Beach, even for the last remnants of the summer. And last but not least, we're going to talk about Hastings Keith. He was the last congressman elected that actually lived in Plymouth County. He lived in West Bridgewater, was primarily a Brockton family before that, served as a senator, and then went down to Washington. And the reason we're bringing him up this month is there's been a lot of issues going on within the cranberry industry and a crisis relative to some of the tariffs that are pending out there in the many countries that are huge purchases of cranberries are affected by those tariffs, and there's a great concern that it may affect one of our largest industries, our largest agricultural industry. And when, many years ago, there was a scare because of use of pesticides about safety of cranberries, Hastings Keith was the leader in funding a study that dissipated that concern, and hence the cranberry industry continued to flourish. He was also a major sponsor for the development of the National Seashore down on Cape Cod, which was part of his district, and he's remembered by a federal building in the city of New Bedford, and certainly by anyone that remembers how hard he fought for his constituents and residents. I want to thank Lorna Green Baker and Christine Richards from our office for putting the show together, Dave Antoine and Ben Alexander for helping me with this show, the Register's Report, along with many others that helped us out. These programs allow us to share what is happening with the registry, our real numbers, some of the programs we offer coming up, and a little bit of our great Plymouth County history. So enjoy the rest of the summer, and we'll see you next month.